Welcome back to Keep It Electric. In this episode, we're diving into spring training, breaking down the biggest surprise standouts, who's turning heads and making a strong case for a roster spot. Plus, we've got some major questions surrounding the Mariners bullpen. Could we see a shakeup before opening day? We'll analyze what that means for the team. We have some injury concerns we cannot ignore. That's George Kirby and Mitch Garver. They're both dealing with setbacks. How serious are these injuries and what impact could they have on Seattle's early season success? Plus, we finally turn to J.P. Crawford. What should we expect from the Mariners captain? Can we expect a bounce back year? All that and more coming up on Keep It Electric. This is episode 77, starting right now. All right, so if you play video games like I do and love the show, like MLB The Show 25 comes out in a week or 2 days if you pre-ordered it, the deluxe edition, I believe. Anyways, I'm so stoked for that game. Probably going to get absolutely wrecked by the Dodgers. I mean, it's whatever. I'm a franchise mode guy. I don't mess with Diamond Dynasty. I'm not out here getting sweaty, grinding for cards. I just want to run my team, make some trades, and lead the Mariners to a virtual dynasty. But I'm really hoping this new GOAT mode difficulty is legit. Playing on Legend last year kind of felt weak, like it wasn't really pushing me. I'm the kind of guy that likes a real challenge. Like, I need those games where every pitch feels like life or death. And, you know, speaking of last year, y'all remember when I talked about my franchise save file corrupting? Like, I was literally in the ALCS against the Yankees, and then the data is like gone. That was it. The game's deleted, franchise deleted from existence. I spent the rest of 2024 playing MLB The Show 23 like I was some kind of baseball time traveler. So 2025 gives me a fresh start, new franchise mode, new road to the World Series, and I will be rolling with the Mariners because, let's be real, I can't help myself. Every year I try to tell myself I'm going to mix it up, play with a different team, and every year I'm right back with Seattle because, I mean, why not? So if you play the show, who's your go-to team? You like running with a squad where you can rebuild them from the ground up? And honestly, they really should add a special celebration if you win the World Series with the Mariners because, you know. Anyways, Garrett Cole is done for the year. Tommy John surgery. And from a pure baseball standpoint, that sucks. Losing an ace is brutal, no matter who you root for. But as a Mariners fan, I mean, we don't really like the Yankees. We actually root against the Yankees. We want them to take L after L after L after L. That's just part of the culture. But at the same time, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. You want to take them down at full strength. No excuses. And now the Yankees just lost their ace before opening day. So you already know what's coming. It's the Yankees struggle, you know, or if they struggle, it's going to be, oh, well, you know, we lost Garrett Cole. If he was healthy, things would be different. Yeah, probably true. But still, like, I don't want to hear it. Anyways, let's talk Mariners because we got some things to cover. Mitch Garver, he is on a mission. After 2024, a very disappointing season, the Mariners catcher and designated hitter has come into spring training looking like a completely different player, or like a Mitch Garver of old. Exactly like what the team needs heading into a new season. Last year was super frustrating for him. He played 112 games, stayed relatively healthy for the most part, but his offensive production just wasn't there. And in a passionate baseball city like Seattle, struggling players hear it from the fan base. Some of the criticism for Garver, it definitely crossed the line. But to Garver's credit, he blocked out the noise. He's putting in the work, and now he's making some serious noise in training camp. Garver leads the Mariners in home runs with 3 bombs. Slash line, 444, 476, 944. Like, really good production. That's exactly the kind of offensive firepower Seattle was expecting when they signed him. And it's a crucial development for the lineup. Like, the lineup leans heavily on Kyle Raleigh behind the plate, but just as things were clicking, Garver took a pitch off of his hand during a game against the Brewers. At that moment, you could kind of hear a collective groan because he was just getting hot. And having him go down before opening day would be brutal. Luckily, he dodged a bullet. The x-rays came back negative. And while Garver is still set to meet with the team doctors, signs suggest he avoided a serious injury. So that's a massive relief. We've all seen what Garver did with the Texas Rangers when he was healthy. This guy has like legitimate power. His 2024 season with the Mariners, forgettable. But 2025 is a clean slate. The Mariners need him to be a difference maker. And this spring training performance, if that's any indication, he's ready to remind everyone exactly what he's capable of. And with Seattle needing an offensive boost, a resurgent Mitch Garver could be a game changer. So hopefully he gets healthy and he stays hot. If he does stay hot into the regular season, he could provide the right-handed power this lineup desperately needs. And honestly, I would get ready for that. Garver could potentially be an X factor, or the X factor that Seattle has been looking for when they signed him. So that was like kind of, better news. This is definitely worse. Over this past week since the last recording, George Kirby is now going to be out for a bit with shoulder inflammation. He's hitting the 15-day injured list and won't be on the opening day roster. Honestly, this shouldn't be too shocking. We've been lucky enough to have healthy pitchers for the last few years. This is a similar issue. Actually, it's the exact same issue that popped up for Kirby in 2021 during the COVID season. And now we're looking at him missing the first month, probably the first month and a half while he recovers and rebuilds that shoulder. Yeah, it sucks. You never want to start the season down one of your best arms, but at the same time, this is exactly why the Mariners have Emerson Hancock. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Hancock would be in the starting rotation for just about any other team in the league. He's a good problem to have for the Seattle Mariners. Is he Kirby? No. But the dude is solid, and he's more than capable of holding things down until Kirby gets back. So let's look at what Hancock has done. He gave the Mariners 12 starts, 60.2 innings, finished with a 4.75 ERA. No, that's not elite, but that's more than serviceable. What it really tells us is how lucky we are that we kept Luis Castillo on the team. There were plenty of rumors swirling around the Mariners potentially moving him this offseason, and then you lose George Kirby. Suddenly the rotation goes from a strength to a problem real fast if you don't have Castillo right now. So it would be a shame not to talk about this, because it's one of those moments where the frustration with the fan base makes a lot of sense. The Mariners have been extremely lucky over the years to avoid being one of those teams where pitchers just drop like flies. Yeah, a couple of minor injuries each season, but for the most part, the rotation has been rock solid. But here's where the lack of aggression in free agency could really come back to bite the team. We've seen teams get completely derailed because of pitching injuries, sometimes before the season even starts. And if that happens to the Mariners, there's no backup plan. This team is built on starting pitching. Statistically, that's their single point of failure. If the rotation falls apart, this team just doesn't stand a chance. So, honestly, it's a good thing that we have Emerson Hancock right now. We should be jumping for joy, to be honest, because he'll anchor the starting rotation and keep this team alive while George Kirby makes his way back. All right, so let's move on to spring training surprises. And I covered this a little bit in an article, who's in, who's out. So let's talk surprises first, because every year we get a couple of guys who come out of nowhere and force their way onto the roster. A few who play themselves right out of the mix. I think some of the guys who play themselves out of the mix probably come from the bullpen. We'll talk about that. And a surprise and probably a not surprise. Honestly, one of the surprises, I straight up put my foot in my mouth. I'll own that. But, it happens sometimes. Anyways, let's talk about the easy one here. Ryan Bliss. I think Ryan Bliss came into Mariners spring training as a bit of a wild card. High upside, but still unproven at the major league level. He only played 33 games last year. I think the real question is, could he handle an everyday role? And I think he's answering that in a big way right now. He's hitting 350. He's 7 for 20. He's showing great instincts at second base and looks like a natural fit alongside J.P. Crawford up the middle. He hasn't homered yet. Also, you really shouldn't be fooled by that. He's got some very sneaky pop. What does this mean for the infield? Well, if Bliss keeps this up, he could take over as the Mariners' full-time second baseman in 2025. And the best part is I don't think it pushes Dylan Moore out. It actually gives Seattle more roster flexibility. Keeping Moore in the utility role where he thrives. Here's where things I think like really get surprising, because I made plenty of jokes about Miles Mastrobuoni when we signed him. I wasn't impressed by him, and he's, there's still some runway for him to like prove us wrong. But if you didn't expect Miles Mastrobuoni to be on the opening day roster or even in the conversation, you weren't alone. When Seattle signed him this offseason, most people saw him as a AAA guy, some added depth. I assumed that he would be taking the shuttle from Tacoma to Seattle pretty frequently. His strength has always been his glove. It's never been his bat. And that's where the doubts were. Last season, he finished below the Mendoza line. But right now, he's slashing .438, 7 for 16 with 4 ribbies, a triple, and 0 strikeouts. That's like the most important thing. That approach at the plate is exactly what the Mariners need. A team that led the league in strikeouts last season, yeah, they'll take all the contact hitters they can get. So with Jorge Polanco locked in at third, I think Miles Mastrobuoni has made a case to be a backup for Jorge Polanco at third. He's got the fielding and he's got the versatility. Now, moving on to the bullpen, I think the first guy out right now is Eduardo Bazardo, and I wasn't a big fan of him from the jump, but he was projected to make the opening day roster in the bullpen. I think coming into camp, most people thought he probably had the role, but since spring training started, he's been pretty rough. He's allowed 5 hits, 5 earned, and only 3 1/3 innings. And the issue is there's a ton of arms battling for just a few spots in the bullpen. I think there's only maybe like 1 or 2. Now I think there could be like 3. If things don't turn around fast for Bazardo, he's likely headed to AAA, or he'll probably be getting a fresh start somewhere else. Cody Bolton is kind of a surprising name to not make the roster or make the opening day roster. He's already been optioned to the minor league camp. He actually wasn't horrible. He didn't allow a single earned run over 4 innings, but where he didn't make the cut is walks. He was a little erratic. So over 4 innings, he issued 3 free passes. And, like for this Mariners organization, if you are struggling with your command, like that's non-negotiable. You're not going to get a chance. So hopefully he can tighten up his command. He's definitely going to start off in AAA, and maybe he'll make it to the main roster at some point through the season. Don't be surprised if that happens. But what that does mean is who is going to fill up these 2 to 3 roster spots? I mean, could it be Brandon Garcia, the young lefty who could fill multiple innings if he steps up? Or could it be Drew Pomerantz, older veteran who's looking to reclaim some of his former dominance? Either way, I find this whole situation pretty unpredictable. There are a lot of arms down there at spring training right now who's competing for this. I really could struggle with predicting who it could be. It could be Will Klein. I don't know. I made a case for Jesse Hahn. He was great, and then he kind of blew up a little bit recently, but who knows who it's going to be. All I know is that we're at the point where some players need to step up, and if they do, I think a spot for them is as good as theirs. All right, let's talk about J.P. Crawford, because this dude is turning the page on 2024 and looking ahead for a fresh start in 2025. And let's be real, like we've been calling for a bounce back year from him this year. I just don't know if I really fully see it that way. So 2024 was rough. There's no doubt about that. He battled injuries, struggled at the plate more than we expected, and just never really looked fully locked in. He chased more pitches last season than usual, but not drastically more. His strikeout rate, that was up. His walk rate, that was down. And the overall production just wasn't there. But when you really break it down, I don't think 2024 was about JP declining. I think it was just more of one of those bad baseball years. And that just kind of happens. So think about this. Like, he played just 105 games last year. That's 40 fewer than he played in 2022 and 2023. He still hit 9 home runs, the same total as 2022 when he played 145 games. That power, it's still in there. And remember, in 2023, the guy was getting MVP votes. He had down votes and was actually in the MVP conversation. So that wasn't a fluke. Now, if you watched JP last season, you probably noticed the biggest issue. He was constantly behind in the count. He swung at the first pitch 6% more than he did in 2023, jumping from 17.3 to 23.1, still well below the MLB average, but you could tell he was trying to attack early. The other part that really frustrated me when watching his plate appearances, he did not get any love from the umpires. This guy's got one of the best baseball eyes in baseball. But last year, the strike zone was not in his favor. He walked nearly 15% of the time in 2023, but in 2024, it felt like every borderline pitch just went against him. And you could see it really like biting at him. Now, despite all that, he still barreled the ball up more than he ever has. His bat speed, up. He hit balls harder, but his ability to square them up consistently, that was what was missing from last season. And to his credit, he admitted it, said his swing fell off all year, and it kind of makes sense. After putting in so much work before the 2023 season and unlocking something special, it wasn't just clicking, or it wasn't clicking for him in 2024. But now he's hunting for that swing again. And when he homered against the Rockies in spring training, he straight up said that was the best his swing has felt since 2023. And if you watch that homer, the lower half of his body, the mechanics, the fluidity, that's vintage JP. I remember watching that swing and immediately thinking, like, that's it. That's the guy. If that version of J.P. Crawford shows up in 2025, everybody can exhale. Because let's be real, the Mariners don't need Julio Rodriguez to be Superman. We don't need Kyle Raleigh to be a superstar. Those guys just need to do what they do. But it's up to the role players around them that have to step up. And if Crawford can find that swing, stay consistent, and most importantly, stay healthy, oh man. Like, what's the outlook for JP in 2025 if that can happen? I mean, don't get me wrong. He's 30 years old. He's heading into his 9th MLB season. I'm not expecting him to suddenly turn into a 20-plus homer guy, but I do think he'll push it into the double digits. I expect the same elite glove. I think his chemistry with Ryan Bliss is something to watch. If Bliss gets regular playing time at second base, the Mariners could have a legit infield tandem up the middle, one that sparks some real excitement. So I don't think there's a lot of focus all over this roster, and I don't think we should be overlooking J.P. Crawford right now. It's easy to focus on struggles last year, and it's easy to focus on all those guys who struggled. It's easy to jump ship when a player has a down season, but J.P. Crawford is still here. The Mariners have him locked down through 2026. So, I don't expect J.P. Crawford to fall off a cliff right now. I think he could potentially find some of that 2023 form. And if he's that guy again, that's one more step toward the Mariners making a serious run at the postseason. I can't wait to see that. So thanks for watching another episode of Keep It Electric. This was episode 77. I'll see you next week for episode 78.